Welcome back. You're still watching The Globe. Now, the United Nations has dedicated this year's International Day of Peace to fostering dialogue and collecting ideas in the battle against COVID-19. The UN General Assembly has declared this as a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace through observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. For more on this, I'm now joined by political analyst at the University of Pretoria, Professor Christopher Isike. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. I look at this day and it is a wonderful ideal, but sadly, human beings are involved.
Thank you very much, Peter, for having me. So tell me, why do you say sadly human beings are involved?
Because for some reason, since the beginning of time, human beings propend towards unpeaceful resolution of issues.
Well, because I'm sure it's because people benefit from war. And in politics, we say war is the continuation of policy by another means. So the political economy of war makes people to, tend towards conflict, violence, because they benefit. But otherwise, as humans, if we collaborate, if we, come together as one, we will tend to work better together and promote our collective interest more than we do. And that's why the United Nations, put down this day as one to celebrate every year in order to recognize the, peace efforts of those who have worked hard to end conflict and promote peace. It's also a day of, ceasefire at all levels, both at the personal level in terms of personal relationships and also at the political level.
All right, so this year's theme is quite interesting, and often when you have a common enemy, that does tend to bring people together, and COVID-19 is one that knows no barriers, no religious affiliations. It is a disease against humanity. Do you think that this will help gather the thinking towards this multilateralism and working together?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the home truths that COVID-19 has brought to everyone in the world is the interdependence of the human race, that we're all connected. And COVID-19 is a very good example of how we should rethink, previous social and economic cleavages in society around race, around, gender, class. All of these things COVID-19 have taught us are actually vanity. And I agree with you that this year's theme for the International Peace Day, which is shaping peace together, cannot be more apt, because whether we like it or not, we as human beings are interconnected in more ways than we would know. I mean, this started in China, in 2019, but by January, February, look at how fast it spread between January and March across different parts of the world, and all it took was travel. And it's amazing how interconnected we are as a human race, helped by technology. So this theme is up in the sense that, if we recognize that we are bound together through our common humanity and interconnections that have been enabled by globalization, it's high time we really begin to think about shared solutions, and use the power of global solidarity for building, a better world for everyone.
Do you think that we're getting better at finding peace as a planet? The news, if you follow the news cycle, we always focus on the events that are happening and perhaps not enough on the ones that have stopped happening. And maybe that there is more peace now than there was, let's say, 2-3 years ago. What's your assessment? Well,
we are getting better, although if you look at trends, conflict trends in the world in the last 6 months, even in the face of COVID-19, there has been a lot of intolerance that emerged. There has been also the increasing spread of hate, increase in poverty and social inequality, gender-based violence at personal relationship levels. All of these things have exacerbated in the last 6 months. But before then, we also had issues with new nationalisms, where we had, populist, nationalist figures in different countries, emerging and, stoking the embers of violence and war. But look, as humans, I would say that we are increasingly, getting to understand that we can solve problems. And one of the things, again, COVID-19 has taught us, is that apart from the interconnectedness of the world, people are beginning to question the essence of the Westphalian state systems as we know them, their relevance to the lived realities of citizens, and especially in developing climes like in Africa, where we have simply adopted these states without really questioning their significance, to our lived realities. All of these things are being questioned. Things like liberal democracy, the whole foundation of society. Should we be thinking more around, social democracy instead of liberal democracy that prioritizes, the profits motive over, public health? Now we know that public health, when people are sick as a result of a pandemic such as we have, the economy can come to a grind. So what should be the priority? Should states begin to think about, a public health system like the universal healthcare system that would help to deal with pandemics like this, reduce inequalities, reduce vulnerabilities, especially in conflict states that have tended to exacerbate even in the face of COVID-19. So all of these things are challenges that require for every one of us to put on our thinking caps, both as academics, as civil society, like those of you in the media, government, the political elites themselves. The COVID-19 is making us have to come together and rethink some of our, received knowledge and assumptions around, the way we live and do things.
So the African Union had this noble idea, silencing the guns by 2020. And we're in the third week of September, which means we have 3 months and a week left, and it's not going to happen. And yet, sadly, we have all the institutions, the apparatus to manage conflict on the continent, but for some reason, we just can't get the job done. Why is that?
Well, again, if we talk about, conflict in Africa, most of the conflict we have in Africa are related to, the faulty state systems, perverse state systems that we inherited from, the colonial era. We adopted them, inherited them, and ran with them without actually rethinking them in terms of how useful they are. And we've seen, previous in societies in states that came together under one umbrella to fight for one purpose, which was the decolonization of the states and the continent at large. Different groups of people coming together and cooperating, and as soon as the independence was achieved, and they assumed the position of leadership in the different states, what we saw was a new kind of contestation that removed development, that removed nation building, that removed peaceful resolution of conflict from the table. It was now about survival of elites, and then ethnicity, the politicization of ethnicity, the politicization of religion. All of these things came into play. So if we want to talk about really doing something to silence the gun in the continent and solve our problems, we need to seriously, and this is one of the things we've not done, we need to first of all go to the root of the problem. Aimé Césaire will tell us that if you want to solve a problem, you have to ask the fundamental question of what is the root cause of that particular problem. I would say, the state system, the perverse state systems we inherited, which produce perverse notions of governance, have not been critically debated and changed, in the continent. So we need to do that. We need to get to the bottom of state systems. Ask whether these states work for us. What kind of democracy should we practice? Is it the liberal variant? Is it the electoral variant we should currently practice and pay attention to, that looks at procedure for attaining power rather than the outcome in terms of its substantive value? or we want to practice a social variant of democracy that delivers certain basic, services to everyone, whether they be in a rural area, whether they be males or females. Everybody in society has a social safety net, a public health protection, and then, we can then begin to mix chip and chop here like the Chinese have done to achieve what I call, responsible statism. So these are some of the issues that we need to look at. I believe that once we're able to deal with this, a lot of our problems will be solved. But if we keep dodging the issues of the 40 state systems we have, which lead to leadership challenges and problems within those states that lead to conflict and that also get exported.
All right. We're running out of time, and I do want to ask this last question, which I hope you can answer quite quickly. But do you think that maybe we have to give up on our politicians and start this from the grassroots, that citizens take charge of bringing their own peace?
Absolutely, I will agree with that because our leaders have failed us time and time again. So we need to force change, but not in a violent way. We need to begin to engage with issues. I think that as people, we have more power than we tend to give ourselves credit for. So I agree that a bottom-up approach would actually scare these leaders to begin to take their people more seriously. And it's happening in various societies and sub-national organizations or formations in Africa, and we're seeing results.
Professor Isike, thank you so much indeed for joining us, and we wish you peace on this day. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I wish you the same.
Thank you. All right, that was political analyst, Professor at the University of Pretoria, Professor Christopher Isike. And today is World Peace Day, so that means you've got to be peaceful also just in your own little spaces. And then we bring it out to community, to the world. And hopefully one day there will be world peace. All right, so we're going to take a break.